Hello and welcome to the FIFAe World Cup 2024 featuring Football Manager final day here from the Exhibition Centre in Liverpool. What a week we have had so far, and it all finishes today where we will be crowning our first ever champion. So, you know it's getting big time when you move to the big stage, and this is the stage that Football Manager deserves, isn't it? The game that we all love. It's getting serious, people. We are going to find a winner today who's representing their country, who's showing us a vast array of skills across the Football Manager board, all in an attempt to secure this beautiful trophy. Look at it, it shines. Someone's going to be lifting this in a few hours' time, but they've got a bit of a challenge ahead of them. They've got 3 other countries to beat in the process. But let's find out how we got here over the last few days of group stage play.
Are we ready?
I was born ready.
Come on. He's not celebrating! He's not celebrating! Cross the ball! Penny back! Yes! Yes! Oh my God, come on! Vamos, hombre! Vamos, hombre! First of many, the first of many.
Great stuff over the last few days. Obviously 20 different managers have now been boiled down to just 4. We're going to meet them very soon. But before we do that, we need to meet our team that's going to take us through all the action. First of all, please join me in welcoming Chelsea Kabarkas. Here we go. Chelsea, welcome, welcome. She's going to be talking to our managers throughout the action and finding out what's going through their head. Of course, it's not just myself and Chelsea. We've also got the dream team, the 4 wise men. We've got Dr. Benji, we've got Lelujo, we've got Will Brazier, and we've got that man Dave coming correct with the information we need. Gentlemen, how are we feeling?
That's a bit posh, this, isn't it?
It's very posh, but it's good. It's great.
Sunday best.
Exactly right. And completely different kettle of fish today. Draft mode. We've left the saves of the 4 different challenges behind. This is where it gets interesting.
Very, very exciting. Players are going to be super important, but the team we never may see ever again. A blend of stars, strikers, attackers, defenders, midfielders and goalkeepers is going to be so good.
We've got a real dream team here in terms of draft expertise. I think particularly you two have probably done more drafts than maybe anyone ever.
Maybe anybody. Kevin's very successful, far more successful than me.
You had to get that in before he got it in, didn't you?
I'm still going to say it anyway, if that's all right. I am very good at it.
Yeah, I organised so Kevin could run. It was one of those.
You're very good at organising them. You've got some serious number crunching you've done over the last few years, haven't you, to really work out the best tactics to employ in a draft.
Yeah, you can't win a draft on draft day, but you can definitely lose one, and that's what we're going to see today.
Very interesting. Kev, what's your sort of secret to your success?
I think balanced squads was always my thing. Everyone would always go for super expensive, fancy players, and then contrary to how I play in the single-player game, I was always about spreading my money nice and evenly between the squad and making sure you've got a squad full of players who can play multiple positions and are all roughly equivalent values and abilities, and that was it. All about balance.
I know. You obviously have reminded us several times off air how many times you've won
7.
These drafts. Yeah, 7. And obviously anyone that was able to beat you in a draft format would probably be world class, wouldn't they?
Goodness me, that's a short list of people. Goodness me.
We've got a table of people here, but I have to talk to Will about this because we did do a practice draft. And who won?
Well, I think that shows the nature of the competition, doesn't it? You can have all the spreadsheets in the world, but when it comes down to the crunch, there's only one man biting, and that was me.
Unfortunately for Dave, you were busy crunching numbers yourself. You weren't able to take part in the practice. If you had.
Yeah, I was afraid. I was in the spreadsheets hiding. But one thing that I did notice Will doing was work rate was very important. Will, stamina was very important to play that gegenpressing style. So we might see that from the managers today.
It's also like when we were doing it, the pressure's bad enough with the time limit. Being on a stage with a crowd, everyone here, it's going to be so much pressure on the people.
Yeah, there is a big change from the group stage, obviously, which the guys are playing their own individual saves with the challenges. Now they're going head-to-head, not just in building their squad, but actually tactically as well. If you guys watching at home haven't done a draft before, here's a little explainer as to how it's going to work today.
The top 4 managers will draft between 18 to 25 players to be used throughout the final day. They'll all have the same budget and one draft pool. Here's how it works. The draft follows a snake format. First pick to last, then last pick to first, and so on until all squad spots are filled. Managers have up to 60 seconds to make each pick. Choose wisely, because once a player is drafted, they're off the board for everyone else. If a manager doesn't make a pick in time, the game automatically assigns a player. But it's not just about picking the best. There's a transfer budget in place, so every decision matters. Can you build a winning squad within the limits? The draft is the final step before the semis and final showdown. Once it's complete, it's time to analyze, adapt, and finalize tactics. The day kicks off with two thrilling two-legged semifinals. And then it's time for the final clash to determine who will be crowned the FIFAe World Champion, featuring Football Manager.
There you go. Simple as that. And it's not just the first ever champion. It's not just winning on the big stage for your country. We've got a bit of prize money up for grabs. $15,000 for the winner, $10,000 for second place, and the two losing semi-finalists will take $8,000 home. Kev, you've been in the scene for a long, long time. How substantial is that opportunity?
I need to have a word with him about past prize money, because
No, you're getting it, but it's in instalments. So it's coming over time.
That's how you like
coming
it.
over time.
9 years, I believe.
Interesting. No, that is a lot of money to play Football Manager for. It's not bad for a week's work, is it? Goodness me.
Well, one of four managers is going to win it. Shall we meet our managers?
Let's.
We did our draft draw in terms of the order of the draft yesterday, and we know the first pick is going to be Enzo Bento of South Africa. So please join us in welcoming Enzo to the stage. Obviously very impressive group stage play, winning the group as all our finalists did here. Next up from Indonesia is Iksan Taufik. He's going to be in that second booth there, right next to his South African opponent. Third is the home manager, Aaron Falloon of England. And look at this entrance from the man. He's dripped up, as he likes to say. And then you've got Sven Golly from Germany. Another very impressive group stage performance. And a very impressive assistant manager when it comes to press conferences as well, Benji.
In a group that is so tightly contested, such as these four, to have a favourite seems maybe a little unfair, but they've been very impressive.
Are you going to be all right sat here because you've been in the German booth all week?
Well,
so do you want to go over now?
I'm close enough to high five when necessary, so I'm excited.
I wouldn't wind them up about that. All the booths you spent time in just finished bottom of their group.
Mate, I am the booth.
Well, we can see the faces of our managers now. They're going to be starting a shortlist period very soon. So how important is that in a draft? Because I mean, I've played a few drafts, and for me, you can have the best laid plans, but once you get in there, it can all go to pot pretty quickly, Dave.
I think it's important to have players that you want to get, you want to acquire, but then again, like you're saying, be very nimble. What positions may you've not got, what's an important position, go down priority, pick those guys, but remember to balance your budget. I think what Kevin was saying before, super, super important, because the budget has got to be managed.
It has, and we can talk about that. $274 million. You can have a smaller budget, you can have a bigger budget. That's sort of, would you say mid-range? I don't know. Where would you place that, Kev?
It's certainly on the smaller side when you look at the values of some of the more expensive players that
Yes.
we've got in the draft, because we've got players that will take nearly half of that budget just on one player. So it'll be interesting to see if anyone decides to go big on an absolute superstar and then really struggle to fill the rest of their squad with anyone anyone's heard of, or whether they do try and spread it out a little bit more across the squad.
Okay, well, Chelsea's actually going to speak to some of our managers now. I think she's with Enzo Bento of South Africa.
Yes, we're here with South Africa. It's been 3 really long days. I heard you saying this morning that you didn't really get any sleep. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling quite confident. I think we just have to take it one pick at a time. But overall, we're feeling really good. We didn't get much sleep, but yeah, I think once adrenaline kicks in, then that'll all take over and we'll be good to go.
What are the plans?
I'm not sure I want to disclose it yet.
That's a good one. I'm going to go ahead and walk over to Indonesia. How are we feeling over here? Are we confident?
Yeah, of course, we are very, very confident. Last night we were training in our community, and yeah, we're confident.
What are your plans? Are you feeling confident to go ahead and disclose them?
Of course, we will beat them.
Beat them. That's the way to go. Well, Spencer, I'm going to go ahead and throw it back to you. These two over here, they seem confident.
Yeah, thank you, Chelsea. Who was the more impressive of those two in the challenge for you guys? I know it's very hard to compare because they were in different groups with different challenges, but did either of them stand out?
I thought Enzo's tactics were really interesting. I think that clear idea was important for the success of his Brighton side. I think he bought the right ingredients to play a number of different systems, and when the going went tough, he went with 3 strikers, so I did like the tactical setup, very much focusing on creating that box with the Segundo Volante.
What about the Indonesian guys for you, Benji?
They stunned us on day one. It was the story of the quadruple that nobody was expecting. And so they sort of followed that up, and they could be caught at that point. It was so strong, and they stayed consistent, which is so important in this tournament. You look at the 4 people we've got here, that was the name of the game, consistency. That's why they're here, and Indonesia were one of the best at that.
How much can we read into it, though, versus what we're going to see today? Is it more about how much time they've spent playing draft mode at this point?
Well, also, there's like little bits throughout the days, isn't there? We walked in on day 3 and there was a big rumour going around that Indonesia were under pressure and there were cracks forming. So that there's things that have happened across the days. I mean, Brighton scored so many goals but also conceded so many. So in draft format, if you review it, it's going to be so exciting.
Yeah, we're going to hear from, obviously, our next 2 managers as they get into their 10-minute shortlist period. The Germans, obviously, would you say winning the press conference, if there's such a thing? We didn't score points for it, but the assistant manager was electric.
I mean, I'm worried about my job because he was asking some fantastic questions in there. He was just coming in after 9 hours of playing Football Manager, asking the best questions. Is there anything this man can't do?
It'll be interesting to see if we get any sound bites from him now, because Chelsea's with them.
Thank you, Spencer. I mean, during the press conference this week, you basically said no one else had the qualities that you guys had. What are your plans going into, being in the Final Four?
We're looking forward for this experience. I think for the last few days we had to compete against mostly the computer managers, which is fairly easy compared to now playing against proper human managers, I think. And now our goal is basically to get in this PvP mode and mindset, make our picks count. I think we have last pick, but also like the first pick in the second round. So we have to make sure that these picks, they have to be the best players we can get, and then I think we're good to go.
I bet your emotions are running high. It's been a long 3 days. How are you managing those emotions?
I think we're doing fairly well. I think like the last 3 days were already so emotionally like draining, and you had to basically compete at this level. Being just here is just such an enjoyment. I think we're just going to enjoy the day and try our best to become the world champions.
Well, I wish you the best of luck. I'm going to go ahead and walk over to England. England, you have given us a show, quite a show for the past few days. I saw you crying, screaming. It was just all over the place. Are those tears in your eyes? No, they're not. How are you feeling?
I'm just proud, man. I'm proud of what we've done. Hopefully the country is proud. All the community that's been watching, hopefully they're proud as well. I'm just happy to be here.
What are your plans for your squad?
Ooh, I don't want to say too much, but we're going to do similar to what we did with our squad at Dynamo. It's what we know, so we're just going to carry on doing what we know.
Well, there you go. He's going to stick to his strategy. You heard that, Spence, so I'm going to go ahead and throw that over to you.
Thank you, Chelsea. Yeah, a lot to unpack there, obviously. And the draft order is going to play a part as well, right? If you're not first pick, like South Africa, and they're sort of lined up in their pick orders here, at what point do you actually want to be 4th pick? Because you then get the snake and you get the fact that you get the 2 in a row.
Yeah, it's probably the second best place to be in.
Okay.
I think the worst spot is probably 3rd, because you're probably not going to get your 1st pick or your 2nd pick. Unless you've got a really clear plan and it's not as obvious as it might be, then you're going to struggle. But yeah, I think having that double pick at the end, the 4th and the 5th one, that's what we're really looking for. And if they make the most of that, and then you're going to have it on the other side, the team that picked first actually then get their own double pick every single time. So those double picks are going to be massive.
I think as well, with it being a smaller budget, it is not as advantageous to get the first pick as it would be if we were on an unlimited budget and they could just go and grab the very best player in the database. I don't think we're going to see somebody come out and grab one of those top 3 or 4 most valuable players straight off. So there's going to be the value players. They'll have identified similar kind of players, I imagine, who are going to give you the real value and the real versatility, and they're the ones that people are probably more likely to be looking to go for.
I think it's going to be really interesting because obviously looking at the teams and how they built the teams, a lot of managers went for defensive midfielders. They spent a lot of money in there, and that was a real building block of their side. We know from a draft perspective, strikers are probably going to be the first one out the block, but sitting with that 4th pick means you can go for a striker and potentially get a defensive midfielder or maybe a centre-back that's going to be strong and powerful in the air. So that's really going to start to build how these squads are being created.
I can confirm the 10-minute shortlist period has started, as you can see there behind me. So they have 10 minutes until we actually kick this draft off. What would you be, this is what I want to ask you guys, if you were in their positions, what would you be doing at this point? You think about the budget, you think about the 2,500 player database, by the way, it's worth stressing. Not every league is available, obviously. You've got the EFL leagues of Championship League 1, League 2, you've got Ligue 1 in France, you've got the Bundesliga and the 3 divisions in Germany, Serie A in Italy, MLS, for example. The J League is an interesting one because it's the only league that had a challenge associated with it in the group stage. So a bit of an advantage maybe to the Yokohama manager.
Yeah, they might have got a few favourites from that division, but obviously we saw quite a lot of transfers coming at the same time. If they go, the mind games of picking one of those players from the J League first,
yeah,
that would be good. Just to get in the minds of everybody else there, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, obviously South Africa managed Brighton in their group stage. So would they be revisiting any of their purchases?
I think that's really likely. I think we're probably going to see that. I think there's going to be. I think we want a little bit of attachment. I know we're saying it's different, it's a very different format, but actually, some of those players that they've now been familiar with, they know what to expect on the pitch. Those sorts of connections they've built up hopefully will be utilised in draft mode too.
Also, you say it's a different format. I think that's key, isn't it? It's head-to-head. Sven said in the press conference last night to get to this tournament, he beat 31 other managers. He does leagues in his own time where he's beating other human managers. He's already in the minds of these guys, I think, because he's doing it on a weekly basis.
Yeah, experience is definitely going to come through. What I'd love to do is sort of pick your guys' brains now about who you would pick first if you were first pick, and then maybe your top 5 picks. Because even if you have 5 first names, you're not going to get them all, are you? You're going to probably lose a couple to your rivals.
Yeah, absolutely. There's certain players that we know perform really, really well in Football Manager. Your big, strong, physical guys, and there's not loads of them in the database. So I think they're likely to be the ones that disappear first. Certainly where I'd go. Big, strong striker.
I think that's a massive part of it, but also someone that can take set pieces. I think is going to be absolutely crucial. We've seen how well these managers have adapted to that near post corner. Coates scoring over 50 goals for many teams in Portugal. So I think that's going to be a side as well. So get your big, strong striker, your set piece taker, and then build from there.
Well, let's reference them. We can see on the screen right now Kevin's top 5 picks. She's talked about a big striker. You've got 2 of them up there. Well, 3 really. Tammy Abraham, though, leading the line. But that surprised some people.
What I've got there is kind of 3 different price points for a big physical striker. Vlahovic, 60-something million, I think, in dollars, is probably the more expensive option that you probably don't go for first, but if you've got a little bit of money left, 10, 11 picks in, you might decide to have a little bit of a splurge on him. Tammy Abraham, always a huge success for me in draft mode. Absolutely love the guy. Yusuf Poulsen, the cheapest of the 3 options, all kind of do similar things though. They're big, strong, quick strikers. And then of course, I've got my 2 big meaty boys on there to nod in those corners. And I think the average height of my 5 picks is probably about 6'8".
I think having played Kevin, it's a little bit like seeing a ghost seeing those picks. I've gone up against all of those guys and they've all teared me before. So it's horrible.
What's more important though, the centre half, the big centre half, or the big striker? If you could only get one for some reason.
My first pick would be the big striker.
Okay.
Because you get, obviously, they're going to contribute from open play as well as those set pieces. If you can get a big striker who's going to be a threat from set pieces, but also quick enough to terrorise defensives, that's priority number 1. Plus, actually, looking through the database that we've got, I think there's probably more big, aerially dominant centre-backs than there are strikers that fit my profile. I think there's probably only, certainly within a reasonable price range, maybe 4 or 5 strikers in the database that I would want as my first choice. So if they don't go for a striker first pick and everybody else does, they could find themselves not getting a Kev striker. I mean, they might have a different plan, a bad plan, we might refer to that as. But yeah, I would definitely want to get those strikers in early.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because John Terry yesterday said he would go from the back first, start with the centre-back.
I wonder why he prioritised the defender.
Of course. But equally, the difference here is if we're going to do these attacking set pieces, trying to score, having a good centre-back that can actually defend them as well could be
absolutely
pivotal. Will, your top 5 picks we're going to talk through now. I can't wait to see these. I'm assuming there's going to be an American in there, goes by the name of Brendan Aronson. Yes, there is.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, look, we had the draft the other day, so these are some of my fan favourites, but starting off with Musiala, because you see those top picks on there and you want to bring the superstar names in, and he is a superstar, but for me, for a good bit of value. Then you see Coop Miners as well, Martin de Roon on the list there. Just, I think chemistry plays a little bit of factor in it as well. Can you get the relationship going, especially with those 2 in midfield? The way I was playing with the gegenpress, I wanted those lads dominating the midfield. Timo Werner played on the left. I think he scored against you, Spencer, quite a few times actually, coming in at the back post. He was that sort of pressing forward, lots of work rate, lots of stamina, as was in the whole team. And then finally, I don't know if you want to say a few words about this man, all of you, because he absolutely dominated you. It's going to be those picks further down the draft order that win this tournament. You can have your big names, but for me, it's going to be the final picks in the draft that really determine that. And Brendan Aronson, I got his name right today, was that man.
Benji, I mean, I know you've sort of scoured the database for the best options. Would it be fair to say that Brendan Aronson probably wouldn't have been at the top of your list until you saw what he did for Will the other day in the practice?
Yeah, a blind squirrel occasionally finds a nut, and that was well, wasn't it? If any of the 4 managers here have got Brendan Aronson on their shortlist as like a number 1 pick, then I'll be surprised. And
there's still time. There's still time.
We've obviously been speaking to Will.
Listen to me.
Yeah, so yeah, it was a surprising pick, Will, but yeah, well done. You've not shut up about it for 3 days. So.
Who's your top 5, Ben?
Have we got the list?
Just we're going to get them up on the screen now.
I think there's different ways of doing it, right? We're talking about set pieces being a major part of it as well, but budgeting for me is relatively important. So if you can go for some of those cheaper options, Donnarumma's on there because he's the best valued goalkeeper pick, even though he's so expensive. But you think about this as a knockout competition. This could go to penalties. This could go to extra time.
Could he go up for a last-minute
He's
corner?
done it for me before against Kevin.
He's scored 2 goals for me against Zealand in the past in knockout competitions.
The one thing I'm known for. But yeah, some of the more budget options are on that list as well. And that gives you more time later on in the draft. That's the thing I think is really important. It doesn't have to be your first pick wowzers. There could be someone left with 100 million, 200 million very late on in the draft, and that's when they could make those picks that could be enabled by their early draft strategy.
We saw a big group stage from Jackson Irvine, didn't we? Has that influenced you?
I would love to see the Germans pick him again, but we'll have to wait and see.
Loyalty. Dave, who you got in your top 5 picks?
So I think I focused very much on building that central midfield position out. I thought it was really important in the group stages, and I think it will reflect in the draft as well. So just looking at a few different players, I think Florian Wirtz is going to be the flair, it's going to be the creativity within the side, he's probably going to be the big money name. I think what he's got is he can play multiple positions. So if you want to overload the opposition later on in the game, play him deep, get him on the ball in those areas. I think he's perfect for that. In terms of his work rate as well, great statistics. Moving forward to the kind of midfielders, so Kefram Thuram has been a fan favourite. We've seen him in loads of teams. I think that's a combination between his strength, his jumping, his power, his heading. He's a top quality defensive midfielder, and I think he'll do some damage in this tournament. Moving to Cope Miners, Will, you had him as well. He's a player that I've had on Football Manager before that just has consistency. He is so consistent. His ability to play multiple positions, set pieces as well, a really good asset. Then Hakan Çalhanoğlu, one of the best set pieces on the game, 19 corners, 16 free kick taking, and 17 long shots. The combination of that, super important as a player. And then just to round it off, Benjamin Sesko is great value. $12.5 million, pacey, quick, good in the air, good jumping ability. He's kind of a big, strong boy, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, it was a coin flip between him and Poulsen for my list, and yeah, I definitely. When we did our draft the other day, I went with Sesko.
Just on that draft as well, like you speak about time pressure, you had a lot of money to spend near the end of it, don't you? And you almost end up panicking because you've got that much amount of money to spend, but not enough picks.
Yeah, I think I left it too late. I think I went Pellegrini, was it last minute, for him in the midfield. He did okay, but not as good as... I got to the final. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, can we stop talking about that draft we did?
Me and Ben were teaching you two how to play. We let you have your fun. That's all.
We're never going to do another one.
You're right, we're not.
Well, actually, we need to do one more because I need to win one.
Yeah, about that.
But interesting that there's only one, I think, player that 2 of you picked, and that was Coop Miners. That shows you just how open to interpretation this whole process is.
Yeah, and we saw him as part of a team and squads throughout the competition on days 1 and 2 and 3 as well. So I think he's a player that'll go. He's versatile. That's the big thing about him, is that he can play in 3 positions. Those players in draft mode, short-sided games, it almost feels like you're playing with almost a smaller squad. You're going to need those players that can do multiple things.
Right, guys, it is nearly time. The shortlisting has finished. The draft is about to kick off. It will be South Africa who have the first pick. We know that. They're going to have a minute for each pick. Once this starts, it doesn't stop. The pressure is going to kick off. We're going to keep you over the action as much as we can, building those squads, populating their potential formations, and we're underway. South Africa are now on the clock. You can see it ticking down there in the booth behind them. Who will be their first pick? They probably know who it's going to be because they get the first pick. They probably thought about it all night.
Yeah, there's a bit of tension here, but they will know exactly who this is going to be. They're well aware that the pick was theirs, of course.
So surely with this first pick, it's like first 5 seconds, get it out of the way, get it done. Like, what's going on here?
I think this is a mind game.
I think they're doing it for the crowd. I think they're giving us a little bit of a dance.
they're teasing us. Surely first pick.
Here we go.
You've known it all night.
Marcus Thuram in the bag. First one out in the draft. $55 million he's set the South Africans back as we go into Indonesia now for their first pick. Would Marcus Thuram been in their thoughts? Would he have been in their list?
I mean, he's a very quick attacking player, so yeah, he's very effective in the match engine. So certainly someone who would have been there or thereabouts. Quite expensive first pick. It uses a big chunk of that budget. Like 20% of the budget gone straight away.
They obviously really like him, and it's obviously worth stressing here in case you are not familiar with drafts. Once a player is picked, the other players cannot pick them. They are gone from the game as an option.
I saw at the time it was going down there. I mean, it does bring you into the... I just can't understand these first picks, and we're getting down to the last 2 seconds. What have you been doing all night? No preparation?
Yeah, Hakimi's been picked for England. Their first pick for Hakimi. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, relatively expensive, but certainly one of the better right backs. But to go right back early with your first pick is pretty surprising. Not one I would have picked out.
Not on any of our lists, were they, Hakimi?
No.
We had a different Thuram. You had Kefrin Thuram. Could we see a Thuram brother connection?
I think so. Lillian's going to be very happy after this draft. But just on Hakimi, obviously we've seen the importance of fullbacks in this tournament. You know, creating the width in the final third. So the pace, the versatility, the off-the-ball running at 17. I think it's a good quality pick.
Also, Anguissa went to Indonesia, central defensive midfielder. You said about the midfield, Dave.
I think very, very important, as we've seen. So important to dictate the play, win the ball back. He's a midfielder that can do a lot of different things, very complete.
So Germany just had their double pick. They've gone for Kolo Muani and they've gone for Denzel Dumfries. Oh, wow. They've gone up top of the pitch and then at the right back, sort of right wing back situation.
Very physical guys.
What we often, I think the reason the fullbacks are going early is because they're often the areas where you've got the least depth within the squad as well. So they might not be your top priority from a squad building perspective. They are areas where you don't have a lot of options, so you want to get the good ones in quick if they're important to get that width in your system.
Kev, you'll be happy about this one. England have just picked Tammy Abraham.
Oh, see, there we go. There's your winners.
We spoke to Aaron just before we came out, actually, and he said he would be his first pick. So he obviously felt like we gambled a little bit that Germany wouldn't pick him. He's come out the other way and he's gone for an Englishman. So
$24 million, not a bad price.
It's a bargain price for a player who is, I mean, he's got everything you could possibly want from a striker in this version of Football Manager. He's big, he's strong, he's quick, he's good from set pieces, he's great.
Well, Indonesia have just gone with Xavi Simons, who I did have actually in my draft, and I was actually very disappointed in him, I'm not going to lie to you. Yeah. I regret it picking him, so Indonesia obviously didn't listen.
The Tammy Abraham pick does worry me. I know we're talking about the physicality and stuff, but also the big moments comes down to composure as well, and Tammy Abraham, he worries me.
The man's a goal machine, don't worry about it.
I'm worried. I don't worry too much.
He's won a lot of times. You've had one win, he's had many.
Yeah. Anyway, let's have Enzo on the clock as well. It just surprised me, like all this research.
Kefrin Thuram, he's been picked.
He's in.
The man he bought to Brighton. He's bought to his draft mode. Loyalty, we love to see it.
On instalments again, was it?
Thuram brothers.
Yeah, he's got the two Thurams. He loves the family.
That is chemistry, if I've heard of that. Speak the same language, communicate, know each other since birth. Great picks.
And an upfront payment, which is surprising from Enzo.
Yeah, rare, very rare.
You don't need a periodic table to know that's real good chemistry right there, don't you?
What amazes me about that is he just got Kefrin Thuram for $23 million, but in the game it cost him $100 million more than that.
Bargain both ways, as far as I'm concerned.
Schlotterbeck has been picked by Indonesia there, big centre-half. Could we see him scoring some goals at the other end of the pitch?
Also,
absolutely.
And also, Kev, they've done all three areas now, haven't they? Up front, in the midfield, and now they've got someone at the back.
Yeah, starting to get your squad depth in those key areas, key men throughout the team, and definitely seem to be going for the nice physical profiles, which I am a big fan of.
I think Schlotterbeck went to South Africa, actually.
Oh, okay.
On their double.
Of course, they had a double, didn't they? Snaking back. Well, I think actually the next choice for Indonesia has been another big centre-back, Nika Sula from obviously, well...
That's a set
he is one of my guys. I've had that guy many times. He is a hero.
He was a very big boy last season.
Expect to see some corners scored today, I think. It's definitely shaping up for that.
Tell you what, so much meat on the menu in these opening picks, isn't there? Some absolute big meaty boys, haven't they?
I love it.
But if you look at the way the tournament developed, and there's some things that won't translate into online play against other people, PvP, but set pieces will. And that's the one thing they can have a little bit of consistency with, that they'll know that having played before.
The one thing I do need to be careful of with someone like Sula, though, is he's not very quick, and there's some quick strikers that have already been drafted.
We seem to be following suit. Here's centre-backs coming out left, right and centre. Gianluca Mancini has joined the English camp. What do we think about that one? He was about $25 million.
Yeah, they're following the model that we talked about just before, which is that you get your striker in, you make sure you nail it down, and then you look at the set pieces, the model that Kev spoke about before.
Mm-hmm. I think we might be about to see Mofi getting picked. You were waxing lyrical about him. You wanted to take him home with you, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, he's already demonstrated just how effective he can be. So yeah, very, very happy to see him.
The Germans just picked him, and Sven actually fist pumped when he got him. He was delighted. He was like,
Sven knows what he's doing.
So they've got 4 players now: Kolo Muani, Dumfries, Kosunu and Mofi. What do we think of that squad shaping up?
I mean, it's definitely shaping up to play a certain way, isn't it?
It's quite interesting. There's 2 strikers in there, or whether Muani might play wide, or whether they're going to rotate them.
That's another important thing in the draft. You want that versatility of being able to have a guy who can play in multiple positions, because you're not necessarily going to have a really big squad, especially if you're spending big on the early picks. You could end up only having 14 or 15 players that you actually intend on using.
Also, we said how much it's going to be a chess match if they're all sort of picking in the same physical profiles, the same sort of format. It's like just going to be 4-0-0s.
And don't forget, we came into this at the start of the week expecting to see a lot of 4-2-4s, so we might be having teams shape up to play that way as well.
Quite a lot of teams use that as a secondary formation because it gives you a little bit.
Almeida
Gives you the width.
Thiago Almeida has joined England. We've just seen Klaus as well join Indonesia there. The squad's starting to take some sort of shape here. It's back to South Africa now again. They're going to have a double pick. They've got a chance to really sort of build out their squad here.
Yeah.
They're looking at a few options. Looking at centre-backs by the looks of things.
They're so used to transfers, so this is like what they do every day.
The question now is, at what point do they switch into trying to hoover up those budget picks? Because there's not a huge number of those really lower-priced value players that are absolutely crucial, and then free you up to get some of the more expensive guys again later on. You don't want to be spending 20 or 30 million each on 10 or 12 players. You want to try and get those ones that are in there at the sort of £5 to £10 million mark. And there are players in there that could start at those kind of low price points.
They went for Connor Goldson, he's $10 million.
They're listening to me.
They're looking at DM now, and they're actually considering Maxime Lopez, which is an interesting one because I know he's a big FM player. He absolutely loves it. But they've not gone with him. They've gone with Manu Kone, $5.93 million.
There you go.
He was on. Me and Ben did a little bit of research on who the value players were, and he was very near the top of that list.
Do you think with all these sort of low price points at the start, this means we're going for like big 25-man squads? So like, where do you think they're putting off after this?
I think it's more about saving money for later on. You don't want to go and spend 3/4 of your budget on 5 or 6 players and then have to get a load of players you don't want. So once you've got your key men in, you get the budget ones in, so you know what kind of budget you've got to shape up the rest of your squad.
Yeah, we spoke to Aaron before, again, said 18. He wants about 18 players, which is obviously they can have 25 if they want them, but to spend was going on sort of a little bit more conservative 20. So if that changes throughout the draft, we'll see. And because of the players that are picked, you mentioned the profile before, we're definitely going to have players that have been picked by the nations that other nations would have wanted. We'll already see a little bit of crossover. So there'll be some nervous faces right now if they haven't got who they really wanted.
So Savio has joined Indonesia, and we've just seen Aaron Falloon of England pick a goalkeeper. He's gone with Karneshi. Not many goalkeepers come out so far. Do people need to start thinking about that?
I think there's probably plenty of goalkeeper options. It wouldn't be a high priority for me necessarily. They do need to draft 2 though, so it's going to be interesting to see what kind of strategy they take on that. Whether they go for 2 kind of similar ones just in case they get a problem, or if they just go and spend like 12 quid on a backup just because they have to save money for elsewhere.
Do you think that's an indication of the way they're going to play though? We were speaking with John Terry yesterday. He was waxing lyrical about, well, maybe the other way, about goalkeepers having so many touches. Like, is this an indictment of the tactic they're going to play going forward?
It could be, because stylistically there won't be loads of goalkeepers. Again, it's a limited draft to a degree. You can't pick any goalkeeper. And again, the cost, you've got to think about that too. You can't just get the one you'd want. I mentioned Donnarumma before. He might be the best one, but he's also the most expensive one. So you have to budget that.
But how impactful is that? If you're going to go with Donnarumma, you're buying a really, really good goalkeeper. The difference between your goalkeeper and the opposition's goalkeeper could be quite big.
Yeah, and I think that's why I would say go for someone like Donnarumma. We joked about the idea of going up at set pieces, right? But if things get desperate and you want someone who's 6'6" or whatever he is to be on that front post, it's a tried and tested method and it does work. So it seems a little crazy, but again, it's not that crazy when you've seen the history of the tournament.
Couple picks for the Germans since we last spoke. David Raum has come in as a defensive option, obviously a German as well. And they've gone with this son of Diego Simeone, obviously playing in Serie A. They've added him to the attack.
I like that one, pressing forward. You know what his work rate is? 18, and that's the man for me. Get the gegenpress going, dominate, make some people cry, and there's very good value as well.
Locatelli has been drafted in by England.
A draft mode legend.
Yeah.
He's always towards the top of people's lists. He's so versatile.
Yeah, very well rounded.
Yeah.
Very, very good player.
Because also, even in the one that we did, suspensions, injuries, like people don't think that that's going to play a part, but they do, and it's even bigger, isn't it, because of the finite amount of games.
I think that's the way. It sounds like some of these guys are going to play 2 matches because it's going to be done. But suspensions will add up as well. We've got to think about that. If you have a red card in an early round, and then suddenly you're thinking, I don't have much depth there. And also, if you go for 18 players, like I mentioned, you're not going to have a player to cover every single position. If you get an injury, there will be a weakness somewhere.
So we've seen a lot of wing-backs go, David Raum, the latest, 8 assists in the Bundesliga last season. Is it going to be more of like you get your wing-backs first choice, as mentioned before, we've seen Hakimi go, and then get a centre-back that maybe can cover that position?
Yeah, again, I think set pieces play a part of the centre-backs more so than style. So you have to balance those 2 things. I think the way in which they're going to draft is they're going to go for the things they really, really want, and then hopefully have money left over. Some of the picks we've seen so far, do appear to be quite budgety, which isn't the way you drafted. You actually said before, you're quite balanced with the way you approach it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of the players who can cover multiple positions. There are, again, not wanting to give them too many clues, there are some pretty useful fullbacks who can play both sides. That probably someone you might want is your third fullback. I've got a few who I've had long and loving relationship with over the years.
Give us one.
I'm not dropping names. I'm not, because I'm not a monster.
Dave, Kimpembe went off the board, $16.75 million.
What's interesting about that is it's the second pick from Indonesia that I picked. I think I might be a bit Indonesian.
Yeah?
Yeah, we've got the same sort of
I
mentality.
hope not, because they'll lose if they're
Yeah, I was going to say, I am worrying for them now.
It's a final that guarantees them 10k.
Spence, the issue you had is you had two left-footed centre-backs.
Yeah, I did
we see
mess
a lot
that
of
bit
two right-footed centre-backs, but that is like niche.
Yeah, I ended up with Kimpembe and Umtiti at centre-back together, and I mean, it did all right for me.
Got to the final.
Do you know what's interesting? The fullbacks that we're talking about, players like Mukiele and Kalulu, right, are on the market right now. A little taller as well.
Yeah.
But I think about back post crosses, headers going in, but equally being offensively quite dominant. They can also play centre back. They can also play wing back positions, like further up as well. So that versatility. If you can get a fullback that's traditionally a right back, who can also play three positions, then you're flying. That's almost worth two picks in a sense.
Do you think we'll have many different variations of tactics? Is it one size fits all today, or do you have to have 2, 3 in your locker, Kev?
I think you need to have tactics that will work with the players that you've got. So you probably need to have a few different options, and you need to be thinking of that in terms of your squad building. So a second striker probably needs to be someone who can play out wide or maybe a little bit deeper. You don't want 3 out-and-out centre forwards in your squad, because you're not going to use them all at the same time unless you're bonkers.
Lacroix just being drafted by the Germans there. Obviously, he came in for England in the group stage, helps them get to the Champions League final with Dinamo Zagreb, but they won't be using him in this challenge. It is, though, with the English guys right now halfway through their minute allocation, and it looks like they're going to go for Jordi Alba of Inter Miami, obviously Barcelona legend.
Is that our first MLS pick? Might be.
Maybe, yeah. I think you might be right.
And that's a great pick, isn't it? Because some of these older players that you might not think, but then there's such a smaller format, so they really work for you.
Plus,
don't they?
great value. Yeah. Only 16 million for him, for a player who, is probably one of the most complete left backs in the database.
Has he still got the pace? He must have lost a little bit.
Still 15, 17 acceleration,
very quick.
Work rate 16. I think he's got great mentals as well. So no, pretty decent pick for 16 million.
And I imagine he takes a decent corner as well.
12 corners. So
But is he a good lad? That's the
He
question.
does. I'm looking for that on him. He's a
20 for good
perfectionist.
ladness.
Does that make him a good lad?
I'm surprised with Aaron, because obviously Lacroix went. I think he's just working out, is that an in-game transfer or is that in the draft mode? He doesn't know what reality he's in right now.
I will say it's been quite a frenetic pace. They've drafted very quickly.
Is this fast paced?
Yeah, which suggests that the shortlists were covering a lot of bases.
Yeah.
And yes, it's been very, very quick.
The thing with it only being 4 players in there as well is if you've got 4 or 5 options for each position, you have got a better chance of getting one of your options who's on your shortlist. If you're drafting with more people, then you're going to have more of the players with earmarking disappearing. So we could find a lot of players actually getting squads that are pretty close to what they intended to get going in.
Yeah, the bigger the wish list, the more chance you have of actually creating a squad in your image, the way you want, and not
exactly.
panicking and ended up with 2 left-footed centre-backs like I did. In terms of financials, everyone's picked 8 players so far, so not quite half the squad. They're going to need a little bit more than that. Just had a 9th pick there for Enzo Bento of South Africa. He's gone with Sabelli there, $4.88 million. He's got, Indonesia have got 118 million left. So about half their budget on
Which
half
already
their squad.
means they can't afford Messi.
Yeah.
There is some, like we don't, but like if you're new to fantasy, like, you'd be looking like there's so many big names on the board, isn't there, Benji? But when you have the constrictions, you just can't make that work.
They just spent 36 million on Grimaldo, by the way.
Ronaldo. So that's really interesting. What's their 9th pick? Is that?
9th pick.
And it's probably the most amount of money they've spent.
Which means they've probably got some of the bargains they were hoping for earlier on, and it's allowed them to be a little bit more flexible.
But only about 80 or so million left now.
They've got a plan.
They've got half the squad they've got to get in there. So let's say they're going to get 10 players, that's about 8 million a player.
But if you're picking an 11, you're now just looking at your bench. You're getting closer and closer to that point of, do you know what, actually, now I've got what I wanted. Now it's about difference makers, and if you can get better off the bench.
So I think realistically, I'm looking at max 14 players that I'd be happy to start, and then just players who can fill in here and there. Don't think you need 18 players that you'd be happy to just rotate in and use. You only got to play 4 matches. You'd be incredibly unlucky to get more than 3 injuries or something. same time. So I think 14 players who are good enough to start is plenty.
The Grimaldo pick worries me. It feels like the value of it, it's like going on your big shop, you've got your list, you've ticked it all off, then you get to the counter, you've seen a special offer and you think, I'm having that. You didn't go in, you didn't want it to start.
Is it a special offer? 36 mil?
No, but I mean, it's one of those ones, it's right in front of you. I'll put it in the basket. You've not thought about it.
Grimaldo's top shelf. Definitely involved in more goals than any other defender in your top 5 league last season. You can't just disrespect the man.
But was he on the list at the start? It just feels like for 36, dropping it now.
But you look at Grimaldo, a very comfortable at wing back. Jonathan Klaus, very comfortable at wing back. Potentially, we're going to see a back 5 for Indonesia.
Aggressive attacking wing back situation. We've just seen Jonathan Tah drifted for the
another
Germans. Of course, 32 million. Good price, Kev.
Love him.
He treats Football Manager players like his children.
They are. We've spent a lot of time
You're
together.
never going to meet them.
I mean, I went to Rome specifically to try and hunt down Tammy Abraham, so, you know, I might
Did he know that?
Well, I tweeted at him, he didn't reply.
I'd informed him the week before that Kevin would be there, so unfortunately for everybody he wasn't there.
Right, listen to this one. 2 really strong picks from the Germans there. We talked about Jonathan Tah. Renato Sanchez, 5.9 million.
Say bargain pick. I had
It's got to be one of the best bargains you can hope for.
And we're talking about versatile players. Can play centrally, can play slightly more forward as well, can play in wide areas, even inside forward, winger, depending on what you'd like.
For me, whenever I look at him, because I feel like he's had such an interesting career, it never seems to have worked out or stayed anywhere for very long. No one's doubted his ability since he burst on the scene as a youngster. Is there concerns there on the mental side of things? It's not working at these clubs. Is he going to work in your draft?
I think it's making the moves at the wrong time maybe in his career when he's a little bit settled. I think he moved far too early. Obviously a breakout star, won awards for so forth, but he's never had that consistent pick, and maybe, slowing his career down and sticking at a team for 3 to 4 years could be what Renato Sanchez needs to do next.
What about 4 games? Well, 2 games really.
4 games is
4
probably
legs.
okay, especially as an impact. And I suppose looking at his statistics, mentals are very, very good. Great work rate, good natural fitness, good balance. There's a lot of good stats there.
Yeah, and for less than 6 mil, he doesn't
And
need
he's
to
always
start.
been very effective in Football Manager as well, so regardless of what he does in real life, he's a great pick for the game.
Castile's off the
goalkeeper.
board. I mean,
Yeah.
definitely that was one in our draft, wasn't it? I feel like that's a draft regular.
If you look at these squads here, we're about halfway through the squad, maybe just over that now for most of these guys. Any squad jumping out at you, Kev, as you think, okay, they've got 2 or 3 names that I think can win them this whole thing?
I mean, they're all very well balanced. It's like these guys are actually quite good at the game, aren't they? They seem to know what they're doing. We should give them some kind of trophy, whoever ends up winning.
One of them.
Yeah.
When do you think we'll get panic picks?
I I really like the German squad. Looking through that, I think they've got a lot of balance there. I think that squad is looking great.
I would say they're actually all very similar. They've all gone with a model which is the one we talked about actually, of having those bigger players, but there's not a lot of playmakers, not a lot of creativity in there.
So they need a bit more in centre mid, the Germans. They've got Renato Sanchez, but other than that, it's at either end of the pitch right now. Really, they've got a bit out wide. They've got a
As well as a
striker.
central midfielder, I think he was quite cheap. I think what we're seeing now is wing backs on either side. We're seeing strikers and midfielders that can move.
We've just seen a big draft. I nearly drafted him myself, and he's now a West Ham player. He is Fulkrug, the big man, the German. He loves a goal, and he's playing for Indonesia.
Another big player.
He's going to be useful, surely.
Yeah, I think every single, well, we'll see obviously in the gameplay later on, is I think everyone's looking at set pieces, everyone's looking at crossing.
I mean, you have to, based on what we've seen over the last few days, just how effective they've been. The teams with the best set piece conversion, the teams have done really well.
Is it going to be a case of just the actual man-to-man marking? Who's going to win those battles? Is it the centre-back? You've chosen the striker you've chosen. The better pick wins.
Well, that is why Jordi Alba, on paper, looks like a really good pick. You mentioned his speed before. He's got like 5 heading. You think about these back post crosses. If you play, I think the way that Enzo played with a slightly off-centred striker, if you have one of those big guys linger on the back of Jordi Alba, like it could be over before the game starts.
You need him not in the box, really, don't you?
Yeah.
Nowhere near it. Also, the thing about Fulkrug is it's only $18 million. For a striker of his capabilities, good finishing stats as well as his physicals. That's quite a good price.
Don't we feel like people are gambling? Like, we spoke a lot about set pieces, but even some of the ones that we did and some of the ones that we've seen, it might not even come down to that, and they're putting all their eggs in that basket.
It's a very nice basket, though.
It's a lovely
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
The Germans have gone for Meslier in goal, French goalkeeper.
First EFL player?
I don't know about you, I don't like that.
Why?
Because of the history of draft mode, I don't necessarily think he's of the calibre that's going to be great here. I think some of his mental attributes are a little underwhelming as well. That's the one goalkeeper that's been drafted so far that I actually would worry about.
But on such a small budget, I don't know that I'm wasting a lot of money on a goalkeeper. I think I'm probably spending that money elsewhere because it's more useful.
But also, you look at his strength, 8. So So if we're talking about him coming for crosses, trying to dominate that box,
Well, he'll just fall over.
it doesn't look good.
Just fall over and get a free
If
kick.
it's windy, I
Problem
worry.
solved.
Yeah, I don't think falling over for a goalkeeper is a great strategy.
I mean, I've seen it happen plenty of times.
It's
Just
just-
fall over, you get a free kick.
Germans added to Meslier with Moise Keane, and the English have just followed up with Baumgartner as well. Thoughts on that one, Dave?
That is a lot of strikers the Germans have got now. That's 4. That is Keane. That is Giovanni Simeone. Of course, Muani as well. And
They could play
last
him out
one-
wide, couldn't they, Colin? Maybe as inside
Keane
forward.
could also play
Yeah,
out wide.
Keane.
It's looking like a 4-2-4.
Big. It's going to be big. A lot of bodies in the box, but also options off the bench, Kev, which you mentioned before. Very, very important.
Yeah, you've got to have a plan B of some kind. You don't just want to rely on that first 11. You, like I say, you're looking at 13, 14 players, and they've certainly got that strength in depth up front now. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see that as a front 4 of big boys, which would be terrifying. To defend
Looking
against.
back at it now, right, Indonesia's first couple of picks was Zambo Anguissa and Simmons, both central midfielders. And we'll talk about the strategy we think everyone else is deploying. They got their central midfielders early and then built around that. Everybody else went a different way with it.
Insignia off the board. I mean, a couple of years ago, that would have been probably at the top, wouldn't it? Is that another one of those sort of maybe aging picks, but could be good value?
I think value and, could play a number of positions, 9, 10, left, right. So I think it would provide good balance and quality to the squad.
So we are currently with South Africa looking to make their round 13 pick. They have $73 million left to spend. 30 seconds on the clock. It's looking like they're going to go for that man we mentioned earlier, Maxime Lopez, big FM player himself, and he's been added to the South African squad.
See, what's interesting now is, do they now get some real budget picks so they can try and save as much money as possible for a big pick, 17 or 18 or something like that?
Well, the budget management now is really important, because if you've got a certain amount of money, you will know nobody else can afford that player, and you can leave them as long as you want and draft around that.
How big we talking? What do you think some of the biggest ones we could see there?
I think maybe a 50-60.
You're joking.
I'm not joking, Will. This is real life.
Juan Jesus has just joined Indonesia. $5 or $6 million, not a bad price at all for a decent centre half. Who's the biggest name that's been drafted so far, realistically? Is it in terms of pure stature in the game? Is it Jordi Alba? In terms of name, no, not the price necessarily. In terms of price, I think, is it maybe Kolo Muani?
I mean, you see Tammy Abraham's there, right?
Yeah.
I feel after the week we've had, one of the Turan brothers, especially the second one that came off the board, because he's been everywhere and he was picked number 2. But is that a bit of favouritism after the week? Is it a bit of romance?
I think it is. He's a very good football manager player. Just joined Juve in real life, and he's a player that will improve. He's got the raw materials to be one of the best midfielders in the world. Now it's time for Thiago Motta to teach him the way.
I made my all-time Football Manager 11 recently in the lead up to this tournament. Mostly it was people that aged me from like over a decade ago. But I did have Kefren Turam in centre mid.
You actually
from
have Kefren?
Yeah, from this stage. It's on my Instagram, you can check it. Because he had a really good 5-6 years for me in AC Milan side, Serie A.
Never going to be a Lorenzo Luca, though, is he? That man was dominant.
One of the bigger boys, Kevin was calling.
Okay, so last pick was Danzo, 24-year-old powerful centre-back. He has joined the Germans, I believe. Running out of money here, $61 million left for the Germans. They've got a second pick now. They're looking for a centre-half.
We're seeing depth be picked in these key positions, which I know is expected, but it doesn't leave a lot of room for tactical fluidity. Like, there's like this one strategy of, well, I know
Well,
I'm
they've
going to
clearly
play.
got a plan, haven't they? They have got a plan, and they are drafted to that plan. And if the plan doesn't work, they've got a problem. But I hope
Have the Germans got a kind of double advantage here in the sense that not only did they play in Japan in the Challenge and J-League are available, I know we've not seen any players drafted from there, but they've also got all 3 of the German divisions there. They've drafted a lot from there, including
they're likely to be a lot
Lionheart.
more familiar with, obviously, the players based in Germany than the other guys are.
Do you think we'll see people go into like more well-established names later on the draft if they are panicking a little bit when those budgets are getting a bit more finite?
That will completely depend on the shortlist and who's gone off it. So they had a long time to do a shortlist. They're 10 minutes, which doesn't necessarily seem like a lot, but they've had the overnight to plan. They should have really come in today thinking, right, I have this person, this person, this person. The plan should be very clear for them. We've just seen Simakan go recently again as well. Another one of those full-back options that can also play centre-back and do a little bit more.
It is really interesting. I think we've spoken in the press conference yesterday about now it's about your knowledge. Do you know football? Do you know these players? And Lionheart has just been picked by the Germans. 16 long throws, Spencer. Is that going to be a weapon? Are we going to see Rory Delap and Stoke City dominate the draft today?
Long throws can be so effective if you use them right as well, especially when you combine those long throws with the big boys that they've got. they're clearly going all in on set pieces.
Is it about knowledge though? I mean, I'm assuming these guys have got such higher level knowledge that almost the chance of you knowing someone the others don't know about is probably unlikely. Is it more about subjectivity and specific choices?
I think so. I think it's also about data analysis, right? It's about breaking down the stats that you want for the position that you think is really important. And then, going from 6,000 players down to a short list of 10 centre-backs that fit your model. I think that's the skill as well, because you can't know everyone.
Yeah, I certainly think it leans even more towards that. I mean, my football knowledge is, 8 of those guys could be in the room and I wouldn't know.
Also,
Here they are.
Surprised we've not seen more from the Championship, because especially at the top clubs from this stage, you're getting like real good value for Premier Division.
Sorry, is this you trying to work in?
Where's Joe Bellingham?
No, I thought Aronson was going to be your guy.
I can't remember what I did with him, but I think it was good.
I think I remember the AI drafted him for you because you were in the toilet, so you can't even claim that one.
And is that
It's a strategy that works.
And is that a strategy going forward? Aaron, take a lead. That's what you've got to do. But I think, to be fair though, with Leeds, Southampton, there are some like Premier Division clubs in the Championship where there is good
The
value.
problem is though, because England, they're really expensive.
True.
Wow, so Indonesia have just drafted a 17-year-old keeper in Simon, who I think gets very good. But are you going to use him in this opportunity at 17, 500k?
Big boy though, and so cheap.
We have always
Throw him in the deep end.
You've always seen, football manager, your goalkeeper gets injured, you throw in the youth player in the cup final and you win the cup
I
final.
mean, I side him just about every save. He is great, and as a backup, and at that price, I mean, it's basically they've got a free goalkeeper there.
Well, I was with Team Norway early on in the week, and they had one of their group, their finals in Group A. But 2 goalies got injury, one without contract. They had to play a 17-year-old in the final, and he ended up winning for it.
Yeah, we're getting very, very close now to them reaching 18 picks.
Yeah, they're running out of money.
Yeah, and so it'll be interesting to see how many other teams now go for further squad depth, so they can cover every single position. We said before, you can't actually. If you go for 22 players, then you've got one for every position if you look at it like that.
You promised me 60, 70 million pound spends. Where are they now?
Well, how are we looking for budgets? We need to go through budgets a little bit and have a look.
What is the most expensive player that's been picked so
This
far?
still happens. Come here, look through. Who have we got who's got money left?
We've got $42.5 million left for the Germans. Oh, that's actually one of the higher numbers, I'd say, at this point. They could go big for one player.
Yeah, that's what's happening. They're waiting for one final, maybe 2, split over like 20 million each.
Right now, they're looking at quite low budget players.
Benjamin Sesko has been picked. That is 5 players that can play centre forward. That is a lot of depth.
By the way,
this
but they
squad.
they still have 40 million left.
It was only $12.5 million.
Yeah, so they're
great
actually
pick.
still got
I'm
some
surprised.
money.
I tell you what, I'm really surprised that's gone now. What's that? That's their pick 18 or something like that.
I mean, when we
15,
did our
16.
practice draft the other day, he was like my 3rd pick because he's so cheap and so useful.
Yeah, nobody would have expected Sesko to go as like the 60th pick in this draft. That's very low down.
And also,
Could see him scoring some big goals.
Yeah, and best made plans, but they're playing each other later, but they're playing each other now, aren't they? You can have those shortlists, but they're being taken off the board right in front of your eyes.
England have $23 million left, so they're looking at quite low price point players. Zach Steffen is going to be drafted in as the goalkeeper option, less than $1 million for him, so still got over $20 million left.
So they're gambling a little bit that their goalkeeper simply won't be injured, because you don't go for someone that's at $1 million and think, you know what, that's my cover.
No, exactly.
Should we just take a moment of silence, please? Because this is the quietest I've heard Aaron for a longest period of time, so I think we should make the most of it.
Yeah, he's actually concentrating, isn't he?
I've never seen this before.
D'Ambrosio has been picked by Indonesia as a 16th player.
Another versatile one. So that's, again, that's now the theme, I think. You look for players that can do multiple things now. If you're going to stay with sort of 18 players, 19 players, 20 players, you're going to want to cover a lot of bases, and that's where they're going right now.
Kasper Schmeichel's being considered here by the South Africans, less than $1 million.
He is always considered one of the best value goalkeeper picks. Has been for a number of years, still the case now.
They've gone with him. He's in.
Has a very good current ability, and so teams with the transfer value. How much was that? Did we see?
Less than $1 million, $925,000.
That's great business.
Yeah, we're talking about keepers under $1 million not being worth it. He is not in that category. He's a fantastic pick for that price.
James Justin, $1.1 million. One of our first
Exactly what I was talking about as players who can play fullback on both sides.
Yep.
He was one of the ones I was thinking of.
And that's 17 players now for South Africa. We're not going to see much more done there. $26.5 million left for Indonesia. They currently have 16 men in their squad, so they're going to need at least a couple more here.
We're going to see some recognisable names in the last few picks. They've been saving money. We're going to see some names that we're definitely familiar with.
Yeah, they're looking at Nonto right now from Leeds Championship. You'll be happy with that. Jamie Vardy's being looked at here as well.
Oh,
Jamie Vardy, last 20 minutes is a great pick.
Yeah, he's some would say, not me, but some would say that he's maybe a little too good at this point in his career.
There's a great pick that I had actually that's still available, 6.25 million, Seb Haller. Scored quite a few goals for me, big boy up front.
I reckon we might see him go.
I'm surprised we haven't. Such a good price.
No, I think there's a few good names that we're going to see, and I think it might go back to those well-established names as well, mightn't it? If you're panicking and you see a name that you think you know, maybe just go for it.
Yeah, and a lot will be dependent now as well on what budget you've got. You might even set it to, well, I've got 20 million, who's the best 20 million pound player, which is actually not something that goes into strategy, but just goes into the finances and the way it works.
That 17th pick for Enzo Benzo, by the way, is James Justin. It's just saying J right now, but I can tell you it is James
That's what
Justin.
Enzo knows him as. They're buddies.
Yeah, he said the nickname in already.
No, they're doing it. They're just doing the name in instalments.
Never gets old.
I think it just did.
Zakaria, 21 million, has joined the English camp. Dennis Zakaria, 21.36 million. Your thoughts on that one?
Love that. A really, really good pick. Again, probably one of the better central midfielders that we've seen as well in a draft not full of them.
What's really interesting is like they have very similar profiles. All these central midfielders that are getting picked. From a perspective, they carry the ball, they win the ball back. They're very versatile. They're box to
It
box.
screams playing two defensive midfielders rather than actual central midfielders. They're looking at those 4-2-4s with two DMs, the 4-2-3-1s with two DMs. They're kind of players. They're the kind of midfielders that are being drafted.
Someone give me Brandon Aronson.
There's time. There is time.
Do you want to start going around, Will, and just maybe suggesting it?
I've got a proposition for you guys. You're lacking in the attacking midfield area. One name.
We've got the agent of
England's about to finish off 850k left, so it's not going to be any big names left for the England squad. You're basically looking at the full England squad there in terms of players that are going to make an impact in this competition. What do we think?
I think what's mad as well, right, when you look at the budgets that are left now, so who we've ruled out because of the budgets: Lionel Messi, Kylian Mbappe, Harry Kane, Lautaro Martinez, Joshua Kimmich, Leroy Sané, Victor Osimhen.
Massive name.
We never would have thought of that going into this draft.
No Musiala.
England are done. Their squad is complete. There will be no more picks from the England camp, I don't think.
I think the most expensive player out there is potentially Zambo Anguissa, which was the first pick that we saw for Indonesia. He went for 42.5. Go on.
This is big here. This is the last pick for Indonesia, potentially. They have 20.5 million to spend.
Here we go.
And they're going to go with Lukman. Adamola Lukman has joined the Indonesian camp.
Bit of Dave, that.
That is a bit of Dave. Hat-trick hero for Atalanta in the Europa League final. A player that is explosive, that can play left, can play right, can play through the middle, attacking midfield. I absolutely love Lukman on Football Manager.
44.5 million left for South Africa.
Wow.
They have 44.5, and they've gone with
This could be big.
Calvin Stengs.
Not massive. It should leave them with a little bit more money left to go as well.
You said that disappointed.
They're probably going to have the bigger squad, aren't they? They're going to go with one or two more at least.
Which
Showing they're good at
32
managing the
million left.
finances, eh?
But I don't think going for a squad over 20 is a good strategy here.
I would expect them now with 32 million to spend it on one player.
Yeah,
Would you not?
I would as well.
Also, you've both been here like multiple times. Like if you've done your draft and then you're seeing other people pick names off the board and budgets, you're thinking, I know what I've done, or have I
Have they,
spent too
have they
much?
left too much on the table?
Yeah. What do you say?
I think you have to be confident in the squad you put together. I think it's very difficult with 4 people in here to not end up with something that was pretty close to the original plan.
This is quite interesting because they're going low price point here. They've gone with an 8 million player, so they're not finished. They're going to the
They're
biggest
looking for
squad
that
here.
depth.
They are. And,
Rotation.
It could be the difference in the end. Again, if you haven't got like an extra right back or an extra left back, and this is where you think, actually, do you know what? It's worth getting one. Also, if you see a big player picked it towards the end, or maybe a 20, 30, 40 million pound player, he probably wasn't part of your initial plan, and now you're thinking, well, where can I fit him in? And that strategically probably isn't the way to go.
Yeah, they went with Ito, the sort of left back, can play centre back as well. Indonesia have got a pick now. They've only got 1.7 million left. This will probably be their last pick. 1.1 million has been spent there by Indonesia. That's putting them with a 19-man squad as we move into the England camp. I think they're done. And I think the Germans are going to just have maybe 1 or 2 more additions.
Yeah.
But England are done.
Sven said he'd go for around 20, so if he's 18 currently, there's a couple more for him to pick out.
24.5 million they've got, the Germans.
Ooh, that's a nice little budget to have left at this stage.
So will they go a 20 million pound player, or will they go to a 12 or something similar to
They'll
that?
probly go for 2 more big strikers based on what they've
Still
done
only
so
got one
far.
keeper. Still only got
Okay,
one
well they'll
keeper.
just save that and get someone for next to nothing, I imagine.
And then they'll have that final pick to go for a bit of a game changer, maybe.
Looking at their squad balance here, I can see that in terms of sort of positions covered, they're pretty good. They're apart from goalkeeper, The least they've got is at left back, but they've still got 5 options that can play there. So in terms of what they're looking for, not a lot that can play in the 10 role, to be fair, but they have
I
gone.
don't think they're using a 10. I think they're using a front 4.
They've gone with a 5 million cost on Illich, and they've still got 20 million left. So they're probably going to have a 20-man squad at least.
Yes. Dave, man, you know a lot about.
Yeah, no, a player that can control the tempo, that can distribute the ball. It's a really interesting price point that they were looking at. You know, we've got the likes of Milinkovic, Kevin, that's not been signed yet.
Which is odd, because he's actually pretty good value as well, and such a threat from the set pieces. The one downside to him is he's not very quick, and they might be thinking of trying to counter the big, physical, fast strikers that everybody's got. You don't want a big, lumbering, slow guy, no matter how many goals he scores.
The biggest story so far is probably that we know England are going to have the lightest squad. 18 men locked in, finished, finalised. We know that Germans are going to have more than 20, because they've still got 18.5 million to spend. So they're going to have 21 at least.
Theoretically, if you've got a smaller squad, you would like to think the average quality of each player would be higher.
Yes, but less.
So your starting 11's likely to be better.
Yeah, your spend per player is going to be.
But
It's just a bit of a gamble. Yeah, it's a gamble. Over 4 matches, you're gambling on not accumulating a lot of injuries and tiredness, I guess.
And sorry, Dave, there's a huge chance that this tournament will be decided on a big injury or a red card or one mistake. That's big games off the night.
Is it part of the strategy? Obviously, Sven's played a lot of PvP drafts. He's still got budget left. Everyone else has spent. Are they now looking for those bargains? Do they believe that the squad depth is important, rotating the side?
I think Sven really worries me, didn't it, when he was sat in that press conference?
It's a big pick for South Africa now. $25.5 million left. Will it be their final pick? It doesn't look like it, because they're sorting by a price range of around 3 to 5 million here. So I think they're going to be having probably 21 players minimum.
And they're still I'm just looking at them now, they're still in conversation. It's very much a team effort. Like, there's not just one person sitting there with a strategy and another sort of giving a name every now and again. They're conversating over every single pick at the moment.
Do you not think, though, that they're obviously probably aware of what else is happening in the room, and they know that one squad's only gone with 18. They know one squad's going to have 20. Do they need 21, 22 players?
No.
I think if that was your plan going in, you probably stick with the plan. You don't want to deviate from that too much.
You just go with everyone's got a strategy that they've had since pick 1, and I'd like to think they're all experienced enough players to just be going with what they originally planned to do and not being effective what was going on around them.
Well, they will have 22 players. They just bought another $1.5 million player. So they're going to have at least 22 to South Africa.
This is the dark.
How much have they got left now?
They've got 20 odd million.
Interesting.
So this is almost where they're going to go. They might go to like a Wonder Kid shortlist of players that aren't currently quite what they would be and need to be in this tournament, but they're players they're going to be familiar with. Not much development in 4 games though, so we'll see.
You just mentioned it as well, assistant managers, did they play even more pivotal part today just because of how frantic the action is?
I mean, Germany have just spent 14 million. They're pretty much done now. It's I imagine, going to be their final player, and their squad will be 22 men strong. And now it's for South Africa, 21.5 left. They're looking at Amin Adil. He's around the 16 mil mark. So even that would leave them with 5 million to spend.
He's a player that was great impact for Bayer Leverkusen last season off the bench. And the back end of the season had a really good run. Obviously, the first Bundesliga title in their history. Big player.
Might see him deployed similarly here off the bench, that type of player. And that's probably where we're at now with some of the picks.
He signed. Adil joins South Africa. 5.25 million left. They go Snake. They go again. And it will be a 23-man squad by the looks of things.
They're taking this World Cup thing really seriously, aren't they?
They're looking at players around the 1.2 million mark here, which is still leaving with 4 million. So they might go 23.
No, they might go for the full 25. I mean, I think that would be an odd strategy to go with, but I guess if you potentially got 3 very different tactics in mind, that then means you are going to need more players.
Germans have done. They've confirmed their squad. 22 men. It's going to be the second biggest, but South Africa's will be the biggest. They've got 23 and counting.
He's so relaxed. He's preparing his scarf just on the side of the desk there. He's not even worried about the draft. He's just worried about how good he looks for this later tournament.
He always looks good. That man always looks good. Don't you worry about it.
Looking at the body language of the South Africans in there, I wonder if they might feel they've got this one wrong, in terms of the size of their squad, because they're left with 4 million now. The last 3 or 4 picks have been like 1 million. That could have been 1 8 million player.
I think it is about what they need, and obviously they know they've just signed Amir Richardson, very big defensive midfielder, 6'4", similar profile to the rest of the midfielders we speak about, carrying, tackling.
It's another 1.2 million player. Aston Franks has
What do
joined
they
them.
know, Spence?
Well, what it says to me is they were very, very happy with their first 15. or first 14, and they didn't feel now like they had to go and
These
get.
last 7 picks could have been one 20 mil player.
But they're giving themselves a variety of types of players, so they've got options.
What's the biggest what's the biggest number of squad that you've ever drafted when you've been doing it?
Probably 22, maybe.
Max.
Yeah, no more
Right,
than that.
give me your thoughts on this. Their squad's finalised, 25 names. They've left 2.1 million on the table.
That suggests they're happy with what they've done, like Ben said.
No, I think it really panic mode, because what we've been saying, the lights, everything comes down to this. You had your shortlist. Like, what are you guys doing at the start? They look panicked. I think it's come down to this. They've just thought we need to get players in.
Perhaps they're giving what's left over to Brighton to try and get rid of some of their transfer debt.
They've got 7 players more than England. So those 7 players could have got them probably one 20+ million player. There's going to be 7 or 8 players that probably don't play a part in this whole draft. That has to go down as a dropped ball for me. They can still win it.
I mean, it depends. If we see them pull out a third tactic that ends up being really, really effective.
They're not going to do that. You know they're not going to do that. They've not got enough time. They're going to go with this one strategy. If it doesn't work,
I mean, they have 2 tactics that they've been using all week.
I agree with the point of the fact that they're doing so many more players than anyone else. You're not going to need them.
No, not gonna be
That's
used.
the bit that's strange for me. And so no matter how many tactics you've got or what the strategy was going in, having 7 more players than another manager.
But you look at what they signed, they've just bought 3 defensive midfielders. That's a position that requires a lot of work. That's when you're looking at the fitness bar dropping down quickly. I've just seen Enzo out of shot, rub his hands together looking very, very satisfied. So maybe that 2.1 million is just going to be there.
Well, it'll be very interesting to see their thoughts on it, because for me, it was fine until they got to about 20. And then I thought, there's a strategy here. Now they go and get 10 million player, it's fine. But they're just all these little 1 million players. I don't see how they get involved.
I think they need to be told that the remaining budget does not go onto the prize pool. I think that's maybe the mistake that they're making.
It'd be great if it did. Right, we're going to go over to Chelsea shortly, because she is in the South African booth. And she's going to tell us exactly what the South Africans were thinking with that 25-man squad. Chelsea.
Thank you, Spencer. Exactly what we're going to start off with that question. What were you thinking? What was your strategy behind picking 25 players?
You never know what can happen. I understand it's a very short draft, but I think with the way we want to play, we might be a bit aggressive, and so we just pick a big enough squad just in case anything happens.
Basically because of injuries. I noticed that your first choice was Thuram, and you also have a sibling there. Was that due to more of making him comfortable, or do you kind of already know your starting 11?
So we were looking for a specific profile of striker, but initially we wanted to go with Kefren Thuram, but obviously we were worried that someone else was going to take Thuram, his brother. So we picked Kefren Thuram. He carried us in the Brighton save throughout the past 3 days. We had to pick him, and then we were worried he would feel a bit lonely. So we brought his brother along with.
How confident are you with your choices? I saw you smiling and just putting your hands up saying, you know what, this is it.
We're very happy, I'll be honest. We're over the moon. We got the team we wanted. We came in with a baseline idea of what we wanted, specific profiles all over the pitch, and I think we got exactly what we wanted.
All right, well, best of luck. We're going to go ahead and move on over to Indonesia. Smiling, confident, always with a smile on. My first question is, I noticed a 17-year-old goalkeeper. Why?
We priority on the center midfield and EM attacking midfield. So the goalkeeper is the Koyan Castiles. We priority the midfield.
How will you use Xavi Simons?
We will give him Rom position. I think we will put he on AM attacking midfield. I think he will be our playmaker.
So basically what you're saying is you're focusing more in your midfield, your center midfield, to just play through the middle rather than out wide, correct? Who's your toughest opponent after kind of just looking around?
Who top opponent?
Your toughest. Hardest. All of them?
All of them.
Hardest opponent.
Hardest is us.
Oh, okay. So you guys are the best. Well, you heard them, Spencer. I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to you.
Thanks, Chelsea. Yeah, the squads are complete. And I think what you said earlier, Benji, is really good. You can't win a draft with the draft, but you can lose it.
Yeah.
Has anyone lost it?
No, I think actually they've gone for very similar squads. I think they've gone for the model that we talked about at the top of the show, and that stands them in really, really good stead. I don't necessarily agree with South Africa. I think they know what they've done.
What a shock. Ben doesn't agree with South Africa.
I think there'll be a little bit of regret. If you don't go through into the semi-finals now, we'll be talking about it. He's doing this at me. I don't know what he's got a puppet there. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting. They've got 2 games to prove me wrong, so good luck, boys.
You can see the squads on the screen now, but for me, you've left 2 mil on the table, lads. 2 million. You could have invested.
Didn't need it.
Didn't want it anyway.
No, didn't need it.
Also, Enzo's been one of the most confident in the press conference there. It was almost through gritted teeth when he was speaking to Chelsea. I don't think he believed what he was saying there. I think that first pick for me was just like, you know what you're doing, make it. 30, 40 seconds went by. What's going on?
Yeah, those players are worth that amount of money for a reason. So getting so many of them, I don't know, gamble.
I think you guys are missing it here. Garassi, Marcus Thuram as a front 2 potentially. That's options. You're looking at that midfield. Kefram Thuram has been bought by basically every single manager. Spence, he's one of your favourite managers of all time. They've got him.
They've got
I
him,
think we're underrating South Africa.
Outside of their first 3 picks, you've got the 2 Thuram brothers, you've got Slotterbeck, right? Then I think that there's some good players there, but the depth off the bench, they could have had a big name player coming off the bench. Instead,
but it's not about having a big name player, it's about having a player that's really good in Football Manager that's going to win them the tournament.
Grifo's a classic one. Set piece specialist, someone that can deliver the ball onto the head of your centre backs.
My big meaty boys.
On what you said though, I don't think they've got as many of those as say a Germany or in England.
No,
or
Germany's team physically is terrifying.
Well, let's look at some of the other teams. Obviously, that's the South African side, leaving a couple mil on the table. You've got the Indonesian side next. Grimaldo is a big money expenditure for them. Obviously, a left wing-back option, Kimpembe, Sula, Simmons. Who's jumping off the page for you here, boys?
I think that's Amo and Guisa first pick. Again, we said before they've built around the midfield. They said it to Chelsea a moment ago as well. That's going to stand them in good stead in terms of dominating the middle. In a game where we don't think many of these teams are going to dominate possession, if they can do that and shut teams down in that way as well, that could be massive. And going for your perfect midfield duo as your first 2 picks gives them a good chance of that.
They look like they're going to be playing very differently to the other 3 teams. So it's going to be interesting to see how they line up.
Well, let's hear what the other 2 have to say. Chelsea is in the German booth right now. I can't wait to hear how they feel their draft went.
My first question is, how much influence does your set pieces have in your picks?
I think quite a lot. Like for this very reason, we picked David Raum. He's very well known at the German room, like for all the set pieces, like free kicks and corners. Yeah, we picked him quite early as well, and we're confident in his abilities.
How do you see your draftees fitting in?
I think we're perfectly happy with our entire draft. Like, we couldn't be happier. We got all the players that we wanted, even some bonus players that we kind of didn't expect to get, but we still got them. So I think we couldn't be happier. I think our squad is just perfect for the way we want to play.
Do you have a set 11 already in mind?
Yes, we do. There's just one position where we have like so many great players. We're not quite sure who's going to start, but I think, yeah, we're good to go.
And lastly, were you surprised by the picks of the other teams?
A little bit. So we competed a bit with South Africa with some picks. We had a few of their players on the list, but not really too much overlap with like England and Indonesia. I think they have more like a technical lineup. So it's going to be very interesting to see this kind of like different mindsets match up in the upcoming games.
All right, well, best of luck. I'm going to go ahead and head over to England, who has a small squad. And that's actually going to be my first question. Why such a small squad?
It was intentional, but the plan was to make sure the players that we do get are very versatile. So, for an example, the centre-back is not only a centre-back, he can play right-back, one can play left-back, the left-back can play left wing, and the defensive midfielder can play attacking midfielder. So we just wanted to build a really versatile squad.
What really caught my attention is that your first pick was Hakimi, a right-back. Why a right-back as your first pick rather than a centre mid, a striker?
I believe this is my first time that I've actually picked him first in the draft. I've done this in a big draft before, and it's mainly because right-backs, the perfect right-back that we want to find, is very difficult to find a very good right-back profile. And I thought Hakimi, if we lost him, a big part of our plan was gone. So Hakimi was very key for us.
What kind of style are you going to play? Because I realized that you chose Jordi Alba, Thiago Almada, who are very technical players. Alba goes up high. Almada is more of a technical, kind of like a Messi, right? Yeah. So I'm assuming it's not your traditional English game.
Oh, no, we're going to have lots of rotations, lots of movements, like the left winger coming inside, letting Jordi Alba get up front, and then we've got Locatelli just sort of patrolling the midfield with his nice tackling in the midfield.
So a very balanced squad. All right, well, Spencer, you heard that. They're going to go ahead and play not a traditional English way of football, maybe a little bit more Spaniard.
Yeah, and his heart rate is still pretty high, to be fair to him. I mean, it shows you the draft does get you going, doesn't it?
Yeah, and he must do drama at school because, you know, he's got a smile on his face, he looks cool, calm and composed, but the numbers, Ben, don't lie. His heart rate was through the roof.
I mean, mine does that when I walk up the stairs, so he could have just done that, who knows?
He's just dropped below 100, so he's getting back to normality now. But this is his squad, the smallest squad in the draft. Is that going to come back to bite him, guys, or is 18 enough?
It's 4 matches. I don't think you need a massive squad. I talked about aiming for 14 and then some versatile players, and it's exactly what Aaron's done. He knows what he's doing.
Who are the names there that could win him this if he was to go on to win? I know how you feel about Tammy Abraham. Hakimi, talked about their first pick. Surprising, Dave?
I don't think so. I think he is one of the best right-backs in the game. And I think when you're looking at his player traits, ability to get forward, knock the ball past the opponent, run with the ball often, it's definitely something that you're looking to build the tactic on. And he's so quick. We speak a lot about the physical stats, 18 acceleration and 19 pace. It's going to give them a great outlet on the right-hand side.
Let's take a look at the German side then. They're really happy with their picks. Kolo Muani was first man out. Denzel Dumfries was next. Benjamin Sesko.
He's got to be one of those
pick.
surprise picks they weren't expecting to get. They left him so late that I think they were just shocked he was still there, and he was definitely a bonus for them.
Yeah, 15th pick actually he was, but that could be a player that wins them the tournament.
Yeah, I think they've looked so good all week, but Meslier really does worry me as the keeper there, where everything's going to be around set pieces. But you look at his strength, like we said, 8. I think I'm
He's
a 9.
a keeper. I've signed him so many times in Football Manager. He's a good keeper.
Not for me, Kev.
We've seen the group stages. We've seen the draft. Has that changed anything? We've got a bit more information. Who do we think is going to win this?
Honestly, I went over to the South Africa booth this morning and I was like, you're my favourites. After that, I think it's all up in the window. I don't want to be patriotic and go for England, and I don't want to agree with Benji and go German. I really do think it's up in the air.
Okay.
South
On the
Africa.
fence from Will.
Team South Africa all the way. Have been since the start.
Even with the 25-man squad?
But I think I think they've
Really?
drafted really well.
I think Sven played it a little coy there. Chelsea said, set piece is a big part. He went, yeah, maybe a little bit. No, he means a lot. Look at the squad he's got. He knows it's going to be a major part, and he's drafted around that.
So you're staying with the Germans, Dave?
I can catch Enzo's eye line once in a while, and he just looks very, 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 very confident. He looks like he's got the players that he wanted to. But I think the interesting side there, South Africa and Germany competing for some players, so they've got similar ideas. So we could see a really good battle. I really want to see Germany play South Africa.
Will's bum's getting sore on the fence, isn't it?
Indonesia.
You're going Indonesia.
Yes, there we go.
I believed it all along. I just didn't want to tell you. You revealed your picks and I've gone for mine, Indonesia.
There we go. Well, it is match day, guys. We are going to start to see our final games of this beautiful, beautiful tournament. Someone is taking that trophy. Let's have a little bit of a look as to how match day is going to go down.
Match day, the most crucial day for any football manager. It's where your tactics, preparation, and decisions come to life. Start by listening to your backroom staff and reviewing the opposition report. It's your roadmap to success, helping you fine-tune your tactics and player roles. Next, it's all about team selection. Picking your starting 11, choose your subs, and make those final tactical tweaks. Set pieces can be game changers. If you haven't already done so, then assign your corner takers, free kick specialists, and make sure every detail is covered. Then it's time for team talk. Rally your players with words of inspiration, or give individual talks to those who need an extra push. What you say in the dressing room can make all the difference. As the match unfolds, stay sharp, adjust tactics on the fly, react to the game, and keep your players focused. Every decision can turn the tide. After the final whistle, it's not over. Deliver your post-match team talk, face the media in the tunnel interview, and brace yourself for the full press conference. Depending on the result, the board might have a word too, especially if you're not meeting expectations. Match day is when legends are made. It's your decisions that define the outcome. Are you ready for the challenge?
We're ready, Chelsea. We're ready indeed. Next time we see you will be for our semi-finals, two-legged, of course, and only 2 countries can get through to the final, where they'll be competing for the trophy and $15,000. This is it. The time for talking is done. The draft is over. It's match day next, and we'll see you soon.